The next specific group that I have chosen to focus on is children. I have chosen 3 different components of fitness that are important for this generation to build up and maintain, and have created prescribed plans to help them achieve this. The first component of fitness that I've chosen for this group of people to work on is their strength. It is really important that children have good strength because their bones are still growing and developing. Therefore, if they have a strong musculoskeletal system to support their developing bones, they are less likely to break and damage anything. I have chosen to prescribe a bodyweight session for this group of younger children, which will take place 2 times per week. As it includes reps and sets of each exercise, which will include squats, lunges and sit-ups, I plan for this to be a moderate intensity workout. The session will only be 15 minutes long. However, if they find this too easy and they progress quickly, I will change the time and intensity to make this more challenging. At the moment, I plan to prescribe them with a session which includes 15 reps of each exercise and then a break before following with the other exercises. There are only 3 exercises. As there are only 3 exercises, I will ask them to complete the routine twice so that they are working for a longer amount of time. This will help them to progress. By doing a session which is focused on using their own body weight, I will not be adding any extra strain or pressure onto their body which is still developing. This is really important because I don't want to cause any injuries from pushing them too hard. As they begin to age and get older, I would expect their body to get stronger because they are more developed. At this point, you could consider increasing the difficulty of their training to help them progress further. However, to begin, I don't want to set anything too challenging which may cause them to lose motivation and not complete every session due to them feeling sore. Like any sort of activity in specific groups, there is always contraindications which must be considered as they can be deemed a risk to the client who is partaking in the activity. There are plenty of benefits of children training, such as improved motor skills, better endurance and strength, and decreased mental stress. However, some common conditions that children can be born with or develop can change how much and the intensity that children can take part in sport. The most common conditions in children are asthma and diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is to do with your insulin levels and can be dangerous in sport because it causes a fluctuation in your glucose levels. However, you can still partake in sport at risk with this condition because it is a relative contraindication. But to do this, you must change the levels of exercising to try and reduce the risk level. This may mean that you have to keep checking your glucose levels regularly and make sure that you regularly eat to top up the changing levels. Another condition which is common is asthma. This is where your lungs become restricted from air. This can cause shortness of breath and dizziness. So if you're exercising, the child and people supervising should look out for these symptoms and act on them to make sure that the person is safe. I have chosen cardiovascular fitness as an important component of fitness to work on for children due to them developing. They will achieve an increase in their aerobic fitness by doing a prescribed routine. By using your cardiovascular system more, your heart becomes stronger and bigger. This means it can pump more oxygen in your blood throughout the body. Oxygen supply is vital for developing children as it is used in cells throughout the body to help chemical reactions take place. I have chosen to prescribe the specific group of children with walking to help improve their aerobic fitness levels. As this is a low impact activity which they should complete at a low to moderate intensity, it won't affect their developing joints. If they do too much high impact activities such as running and jumping when they are young, they risk developing things such as their growth plates and their cartilage in their joints. Therefore, to help increase their cardiovascular fitness, I think a low impact walking session is best suited for them. I recommend them doing this session 4 times a week for 1 hour to help them see a difference. This can be done at any point, for example walking the dog or walking to school. They should try and improve some hill work in the walking, as this will increase the intensity of the session and make them feel like they are working harder and pushing themselves. If at any point they feel extreme out of breath, then they can have a short rest. There are common contraindications in children which they should get advice on before exercising to make sure that it is safe to do so. The most common conditions that can be deemed as having high risk when exercising are asthma and diabetes. As these are relative contraindications, the participants can still partake in exercise. However, it is important to make sure that the exercise is changed and suitable for the people with the conditions so they aren't at such a high risk level. People who suffer with asthma can find themselves becoming out of breath when doing aerobic cardiovascular exercise due to their airways not functioning like normal, which means that you must modify exercise if they are seeming to be struggling. If they experience any symptoms such as dizziness, extreme fatigue, or shortness of breath, they must seek medical advice on how to proceed. Another common condition is type 1 diabetes. Exercising such as walking causes a slow drop in their glucose levels, which can be dangerous because it will suddenly cause a dramatic fatigue. This means it is important to modify sessions for these types of clients, such as making the sessions shorter and at a lower intensity so they have time to eat in between, which ensures that the risk to them is lowered. The last component of fitness which I'll be prescribing a routine for the children is flexibility. I found this to be an important component for children's overall health and fitness because having good flexibility will allow your muscles and tendons and ligaments to develop properly without becoming sore and stiff. Flexibility can be improved through stretching or even through certain types of sport. It helps to prevent injuries, improve range of motion, increase blood flow to the muscles, and it will help them stay more flexible as they age. I have prescribed the following session to the specific group of children to help their flexibility. They will complete a judo session, which is a sport that includes a very good and thorough stretching routine, both at the start and the end of the session. When you first begin the sessions in judo, you don't do any complicated moves. Instead, you work on increasing your flexibility levels, as this is what you need to actually be able to administer the more complicated moves. Overall, judo is a good sport for children to get into because it can help them to manage their mental well-being as well as their physical well-being. If the children enjoy the sessions of stretching, the plan will be increased to involve more than just stretches. Some basic flexibility moves will be completed as the sessions go on. At the beginning of this prescription, the children should go to judo training once a week. Along with the other activities that I have prescribed, this is frequent enough to ensure that they are having enough rest days for their body to adapt without overtraining. The sessions will typically be 1 hour long and will include some moderate intensity stretching routines in them through more dynamic yoga poses. There are some contraindications to young people and exercise. Again, similarly to the last two exercises, the most common contraindications for children are asthma and type 1 diabetes. However, a different type of contraindication can also be how a movement is taught. If the wrong technique is taught to a child, then there is risk of them injuring themselves. This is bad for someone who is developing because you could damage ligaments and tendons, which then won't support your developing skeletal system properly. Then, when taking part in sport, the child would be at more risk to injuring themselves because their body will overall be weaker. Therefore, to change and try and resolve this contraindication, you must make sure that the right technique is taught and you must not exceed your ability when starting out, as this puts you at much higher risk. If the child finds the movements too hard, the move should always be adapted in some way to suit the client better. The other type of condition which could be dangerous in the physical competitive side of judo is asthma. This is a relative contraindication, which means that the child can still partake with this condition. However, they must always be supervised and everyone must be aware of the symptoms to reduce the risk of an incident occurring.